Greetings, we are back with Al from Eat More Vegans. And Al, what are we doing today?
Today we are going to be making a steak like you've never had before. This is Japanese hybrid Wagyu beef.
Okay.
It's a combination that's incredibly hard to find, but actually way cheaper than the A5 fancy stuff
Really?
that they push as the purebred stuff. So we're gonna try it for the first time. I've never tried it before. My understanding is you've never had Wagyu beef before.
No.
So this should be a pretty cool experience. And we've got a ribeye, a strip loin, and a fillet to cook. So we'll be able to compare different steaks as well as understand the difference in the breeding.
Wow. As we said before, 90% of our audience are from America.
Yes.
So what would our...
America!
What would our cousins across the pond, although we are across the pond, what would their nearest equivalent to this be?
So most of the time when you're buying hybrid Wagyu beef over in Europe, right, you're buying Australian Wagyu beef, which is going to be a cross between the traditional Wagyu cow, the Karaoke cow, and an Angus cow, which is the same as you do here in the United States for American beef, right? So that Angus cow is going to be really beefy. It's tough, not tough like, oh, I can't chew it. It's an experience. It's meat, it's meant right, whatever. Whereas this is made with the Karaoke traditional Wagyu cow and a Holstein, which are typically bred for milk production. That's where we get our dairy, right? And so the Holstein's got a totally different flavor profile and a totally different experience. It's got less connective tissue. It's a more tender piece of meat. It naturally has more marbling than Angus beef, but it's not bred for beef production, so a lot of people don't know it and they think Holstein's second class. But it's actually a pretty good alternative to Angus if you like that kind of creamy melt in your mouth texture. I think that's what we're going to get here, which would be very different than what you get either in the United States as American and Australian Wagyu or over in the UK or in the EU. On the cow, the ribeye and the New York strip are adjacent, right? So the ribeye on one end is up against the chuck, and the other end is up against the loin. The New York strip is from that loin area. So the actually eye of the ribeye, as it extends, becomes the New York strip. And the ribeye has that spinalis dorsi, that ribeye cap, that incredibly tender, juicy piece of steak is on here. And then the fillet comes from the tenderloin, which is not a working muscle. And this is a cut that is really loved by a lot of people because it's got almost no connective tissue. It's not a working muscle. And it's also a pretty lean piece of meat. So you can even notice on here, even with the Wagyu, there's a lot less marbling on the fillet than there is on the ribeye or the New York strip, right? But it's still going to be super flavorful. I like ribeye. That's my go-to. My best friend Mark likes New York strip. That's his go-to. And my girlfriend likes fillet. That's her go-to. And so like everybody's got their own combination of what they like. I'm thinking that I'm probably still gonna stick with the ribeye as my favorite when we're done, but I don't know. When you've got this level of marbling in a fillet, this thing could jump out as a new favorite steak cut, but we'll see. So when we season them, we're gonna do really simple. It's gonna be salt and pepper. We don't wanna overpower anything, right? We're gonna smoke them really slowly using a low temperature, 200, 220 degree smoke, bring them up to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we're gonna sear them, which is my favorite part, not only because it gives you the best flavor profile, but we get what we call fire porn. We get to watch these flames, and because these are so fatty, when we sear them, the fat's gonna drop, it's gonna get flare-ups, it's gonna be beautiful. It's hard to do. You gotta pay attention, right? Because all that fat can drip away and you can ruin a perfectly good, expensive steak. But I've done this before. I know what I'm doing.
This isn't your first rodeo.
This is not my first rodeo.
And the burning question.
Yes.
The burning question.
Yes.
What are we cooking on?
We're gonna be cooking on a Kamado Joe, on a Big Joe Series 2. I know that you've got the Franklin barbecue, and you've got, you know, your all-time favorite Chinese offset barbecue. This is gonna be different because this is gonna be fire from the bottom, right? So airflow, instead of coming across the steaks in the Franklin, airflow is gonna be coming up and around as we smoke, and then we'll just be able to move over to a hot side of the grill and be able to sear, which is something that's a little harder to do on an offset. But you can still sear on an offset. There's a couple of different ways to do it. I've seen people literally slide a grate into the firebox on top of the fire, so you're cooking it right on there. Another way to sear, and I did a video that tested different ways to sear. One of my favorite is called cowboy style.
Yes.
where you literally put the steak on the coals. No pan, no grate, no nothing. You're gonna put it on the coals and flip it, and it's so hot that it actually does sterilize it. You don't get that ashy, dirty experience you want. You can do that. Or the other thing you can do is you can just bring the temperature of the smoker up and use the grate inside. You can run that smoker at 400, 450 degrees, which is a good searing temperature. It's not rip-roaring hot, but you can do it right on the grate or on a cast iron skillet you put in there. So what do you think? Should we get to cooking?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, so we're cooking on a Kamado style cooker. This is a ceramic cooker. We're gonna be doing something called two-zone cooking, where we're gonna have a direct side and an indirect side. So the first step is gonna be building a fire. In a Kamado cooker, we're using charcoal as the majority of our fuel.
Yep.
And we're gonna use chunks, flavor wood, to get flavor on the steaks. So I'm gonna put a little bit of a layer down. I've got some cherry wood chunks. I'm gonna put cherry wood chunks just around the sides here. Now we're doing a short cook.
Yep.
Which means that we don't need these giant pieces. So I'm gonna save this for later. We're gonna put some other smaller pieces on top of the cherry chunks that we've just put down.
So is this the kind of setup you do on most direct heat cooks?
Yes, so this is very similar to if we were doing like a pit barrel, barrel side cooker, anything where the heat is coming from the bottom and charcoal is going to be our primary source. Different than on a stick burner where wood is your primary source and the air is coming across. So we don't need to use charcoal other than maybe get a head start on heat for the stick burners. Charcoal is going to be the key to the cook here. We're just using a little bit of cherry for flavor. So if you try to do this at home, if you're doing it on the Franklin, you're going to decide what kind of wood tastes best with each kind of meat. I really like cherry with beef, with steak specifically, and so I'll use cherry as flavor wood. It's got a lot of power, so if you did just cherry in the Franklin, that might be overpowering, or it might be delicious.
But you can mix the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's half the fun of what we're doing, is experimenting and learning. Because smoke is an ingredient. It's the most important ingredient with what we do with open fire cooking. So just like you might experiment with, I like this much pepper or this much garlic or this other seasoning, you gotta experiment with charcoals and woods.
When we went to Cooper's in Texas, they did kind of this style pit cooking where the fat drips down and helps to like sizzle and then steam the meat again, I guess.
Yes, and there's a flavor profile that goes with that because the fat cooking off produces flavor, and it also is so much fun to watch.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So we're gonna be doing that soon. But in the meantime, we gotta get this lit. And you know how we light grills around here?
I do. I think I'm gonna have to get one of these.
All right, so now what I'm gonna do is set up that two-zone that we talked about. So I'm gonna start by putting in this X accessory rack that's gonna support our heat deflectors and grates, okay? And then over on this side, I'm gonna put in a heat deflector. So this piece of ceramic is gonna make it so that heat doesn't hit direct heat on anything that's on this side, but I'm not putting that one on. Because we want direct heat for when it comes time to sear. And then I'm gonna put this rack on top here, which is where we're gonna smoke our steaks, right on top of that heat deflector. And then this grate is what we're actually gonna be searing on later. So we're gonna put that down low, closer to the fire. So when the steaks sear, they're gonna be on there. And now we're gonna let this come up to temperature. So there's a whole technique that we do to bring this up gradually. Because ceramic, once it gets hot, really hard to get cool. So we want it to come up gradually. So we've got a good fire going down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close it now, and we're gonna wait until this is heat soaked. When we feel like we can barely touch it. Now it's a little warm now. But the grill, as the fire heats, it's gonna take, 20 or 30 minutes or so. Right, then we're gonna start closing down the air vents, controlling the airflow, getting to the point where we've got nice clean smoke on the Kamado, and then it'll be time to put the steaks on. Should we go get those steaks opened up and seasoned?
I think so.
I'm gonna start with the ribeye, and I'm starting with the ribeye because it's closest to me.
That's got lovely marbling on.
Yes, and what's gonna happen now while we expose it to the air is that red is gonna blossom. We're gonna get this nice bright color. The ribeye is one of the most beloved steaks because of the marbling. So there's Team Lean, who eat chicken breasts and are boring people generally. And then there's Team Marbling, which know that fat is taste. So not only do you have the eye of the ribeye that's really well marbled marbled piece here, especially marbled in this hybrid here. But you also have this spinalis dorsi, this cap of ribeye, which is the best piece of meat on the cow. So speaking of lean and people that I'm going to be in trouble with for saying that lean is boring.
In the UK, this would be called fillet.
Yes.
And this is like the choice cut. This is normally the most expensive cut.
It is, and it is here too. It's not just a UK thing, and that's because it's lean. It's also not a working muscle, so it's super tender. It's not going to be as flavorful as a ribeye, but if you're going to do an F1, look at the marbling on this, right? And this is going to pink up as the air gets to it, but look at how much intermuscular fat. So I'm going to say for a lean piece of meat, this one's likely to have a lot of flavor. And then we have the ribeye's cousin, the strip steak. So the strip steak comes from the end of that ribeye. So you've seen a prime rib, the ribeye roast, it's got all of the spinalis. As it gets smaller at the end, the spinalis disappears, and then you're into loin. If you see a strip loin at the butcher, I don't know what they call it over in the UK here, the roast will be called a strip loin, the steak will be called a New York strip. This is basically the eye, right?
Yep.
Now this is obviously a different cow, it looks very different. This piece is actually even more well marbled than this, if you can believe that, right?
Yeah.
But this is a lot of people's also favorite steak because it's well marbled, but kind of beefy and a little bit tougher to chew. All right, so for seasoning, we're gonna keep it really super simple. Salt and pepper. This stuff should have enough flavor with that Wagyu fat that we really want the flavor of the steak. So we're just gonna bring it out a little bit with salt and just a little tiny bit of pepper. So let me show you how I'm gonna salt one. I'm just gonna use a pinch. About that. This is Morton's kosher salt that I'm using here. If you were using something like Diamond Crystal, you'd use a little bit less because those crystals are smaller, but I like these bigger crystals so I can see how much salt I'm putting on. All right, so you want to salt these two?
Yes, sir. You don't pat it or anything, you just let it.
Nope. Yeah, there you go. Good job.
And always put salt on first?
Always put salt on. Salt is gonna pull the moisture out, right? So now I'm gonna take my glove off. This is the one thing I haven't figured out how to do with the clean hand, dirty hand is a pepper grinder that requires 2 hands. So this is the pepper cannon. This is another manly man tool. I mean, it's called a cannon for a reason.
Yeah, that's
a lot of pepper, right?
That's rapid.
All right, so with your gloved hand, do you mind patting it down and flipping it for me?
Yes, sir.
Good. And that's all we got to do to season these. There's nothing really fancy here. Pepper cannon makes a difference. Kosher salt will make a difference. And now it's time to get ready to cook. So we're going to use meter thermometers to cook these so we can keep really close track of the cooks and see how they go. All right, so those are ready. Next step is putting them on the grill. Meet you over there.
Let's do it.
All right, so you weren't here earlier when we set this up, but the Kamado Joe is running at 200 degrees. Nice, low and slow. We put some cherry wood in there with the charcoal. And we're doing 2-zone cooking. So this is our indirect side, and then later when we sear, we're gonna be over there on the direct side. So we're just gonna squeeze these 3 steaks. And then we're gonna let those smoke nice and easy. When we see that they get to 105, which won't all be at the same time because they're different thicknesses, we're gonna pull them off one at a time and let them rest and get ready for searing. This could take 20 minutes, it could take 45 minutes. It's hard to tell with that level of fat and that thin of steaks, but we'll be back when we're back. So how do these look compared to the ribeyes that you made?
Oh, completely different. Completely different.
Yeah, it's funny, right? All right, so we've got our New York strip, our fillet or fillet as you call it over there, and our ribeye.
Yes.
3 very different steaks. So why don't we start with the New York strip?
Yes.
Now remember, the grain was running this way, right?
Yep.
So while people think, okay, I'm gonna slice it this way, that's not the way we make a tender steak, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this right here at the fat seam. And then I'm gonna slice this way against the grain to make the most tender pieces.
Look at that.
Cooked to perfection.
So,
oh, look at that.
we were worried about only 105 degrees, but looks like that worked out perfectly, right? That is a perfectly cut piece of meat.
That looks incredible. Look at the marbling.
So this hopefully is gonna taste a little different. Alana, are you gonna try some steak?
And try a little bit of steak. Oh.
Thank you.
There's
sir.
one for Mrs. H. We'll get the big one here for Mr. H.
Look at. Oh, wow.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You guys take that piece there. Cheers.
Oh, my God.
All right.
Wow.
So you've never had Wagyu Angus cross before,
No.
but I described earlier the creamy, melt in your mouth kind of nature. What do you think?
That's a taste of heaven, like that. Oh my gosh.
My eyes are watering. Literally.
It's crazy, right? And this stuff is way cheaper than the A5. Let's try the ribeye.
Can I have another bit?
Nope, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. Ribeyes are all butchered in a different way. We can't get against the grain on these, but there we go.
Oh God, that was just so good, wasn't it?
This one was super thin, but still looks like we got a good cook on it.
Yeah.
All right, Alana, are you gonna try this one too? I'll put that there if you want it. You can take it.
Thank you.
And then let's cut these. All right, piece for each of you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna cut this. You guys take this piece. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
So a little different, right? A little more fat, a little more flavor, a little tougher.
What do you think? A 2. Well done.
It's a 2. All right, good.
Yeah, yeah. Two's good. Two's the new 10.
2 is the new 10.
That's like Lana's first steak, actually. The
Yeah?
piece, yeah.
So, New York strip or ribeye? What are we thinking right now?
Yeah.
New York strip. Okay.
I preferred that one slightly more.
Okay. Now it could be that that one had way more intense marbling than we started. If it was from a cow that looked maybe more like me, but we'll see. But it's still a tremendous cut. All right.
Amazing.
Now this is going to be the thing I'm most interested in, because I don't really love fillet because it doesn't have much fat, but this one did have
Yeah.
good marbling. Now fillet, of course, comes from the tenderloin, so the grain runs this way. So they've already cut against the grain this way. There's nothing that we need to do.
Okay. Oh.
I think we did a good job here. Now this one can be a little bit more rare than the others because there's not as much fat that needs to render, right? So we're going to do nice thin slices.
Have you noticed how we took a step closer to the board?
Yes.
With this?
Now Alana has left, so it's just us 3. So go ahead and grab a piece.
Thank you.
Wow. I mean, I cannot get over how soft that meat is. It's like touching like a baby's skin. I know it sounds a bit silly,
It is.
but it's
soft.
like
It
it
is.
is so soft.
All right, let's see how the fillet tastes.
Cheers.
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 Oh,
It's really good.
really tasty.
It's more tender than the others. I think I'm still going with one of the
I still-
spinella steaks.
That's my favorite.
But I think if my girlfriend wants filet,
Yeah.
I can cook this F1 filet from Meat and Bone, and I'm not feeling that I'm getting shortchanged on a steak. It's still going to be as good as a ribeye that's not one of this stuff. And I apologize if I ruined steak for you guys.
Well, you've ruined a lot
think
of things
you've
for
ruined
it, but in a fantastic way.
What we have here is a failure to communicate. Literally.
Yeah. You got me? Cool. I can whisper sweet nothings to you. So where can we get this bit of kit? Is it something from Amazon?
See
or-
right there? The link right there?
Right there.
Right, that link right there. That's where you
didn't
get
see
it.
it.
Yeah. You'd be my straight man. Why did you tell me to stop? Something wrong?
Ow, yet again. You've blown our heads off.
I know, after having brisket, I didn't think beef could get better, but like different cut, different taste, different levels of wow.
Literally, absolutely blown my head off.
I'm glad that we could teach you one more thing. Was it an okay surprise?
It was.
Okay that I sprung this on you?
Yes, it was a most welcome surprise. We were talking about the smoke earlier. The smell of smoke is amazing. However, the smell of searing, be it chicken or steak, absolutely love that smell. Thank you so much, Al. We really appreciate it.
So glad you guys could come.
And all that leaves this little British family to say is...
Take care.
God bless.
See you on the next video.